There are days when the movement in Foxborough feels like a message. Today is one of those days. While a lot of people on the outside are still trying to guess where the Patriots are headed, the signs are starting to point toward a rebuild with real backbone, real purpose, and real ambition. There's a new addition to the coaching staff, an old name from the past suddenly back in the conversation, a trade rumor that could shake the whole league, and an interesting clue about the third quarterback Vrabel wants to develop. So hit that like button and come with me. This first story to me carries more weight than just the name involved. Shane Bowen joining the Patriots as a defensive analyst says something very clear. Mike Vrabel is not putting this staff together on the fly. He's not doing it on impulse. He's not doing it based on flashy resumes. He's bringing in people who speak his football language, people who have lived inside the kind of system he wants to build, people who understand the standard, the detail, the physical and mental edge he has always demanded from his teams. And when that starts happening over and over again, that's not random. That's identity taking shape. Bowen is only 39, but he and Vrabel go way back. They first crossed paths at Ohio State, worked together in Houston, then reunited in Tennessee, where Bowen rose through the staff and eventually became defensive coordinator. That matters, because this is not some random hire coming in to watch from the corner. This is someone who knows the process from the inside, someone who has already shared pressure, game planning, and decision-making with the head coach. For a Patriots team trying to reset its defensive personality, that could speed things up behind the scenes in a big way. Sure, his most recent run with the Giants did not end well, and that's always going to be part of the conversation. But I think it's way too shallow to look at how it ended in New York and act like that wipes out the rest of his body of work. Vrabel himself basically told you what he thinks when Bowen got let go. There was respect there, loyalty, trust. And in football, especially during a rebuild, trust between coaches is gold. What I see here is a Patriots team trying to build a defense with aligned thinking from top to bottom. Not just talent on the roster, but unified leadership, a consistent message, and an environment where every adjustment connects. And honestly, this kind of move may not make the noise of a trade or a star signing, but this is exactly the kind of decision that helps create a team nobody wants to deal with in December. The second story brings one of those twists football loves, because Kenny Moore II, a guy who once came through New England and never got the chance to stick, could now hit the trade market as a respected veteran and one of the most productive slot corners in the league. And I'll tell you this right now, that kind of story hits both the memory of the fan base and the competitive pride of the team. Because when a player leaves here, struggles, rebuilds himself somewhere else, and turns into a real name in the NFL, it's never just about football. There's timing, there's growth, there's pain, there's opportunity. Moore entered the league as an undrafted guy out of Valdosta State, and his Patriots chapter ended in a way that clearly stayed with him. Years later, the way he talked about that moment was heavy. You could feel how much it hurt him. But what happened after that in Indianapolis deserves real respect. He became one of the best nickel corners in football. He piled up tackles, picks, big plays, recognition. This is not some random veteran being tossed around in trade rumors. This is someone who built real value in this league. Now, from the Patriots side, the question gets interesting. Is this the kind of move worth making right now? The secondary has quality at the top, with Christian Gonzalez leading the way, and Carlton Davis plus Marcus Jones giving the group real substance. But depth matters. Depth always matters, especially for a team trying to make a serious push and survive a long season. Moore may not be at his absolute peak anymore, especially after a more uneven year and some recent injury issues, but the instincts, the toughness, and the competitiveness are still there. And there's one more thing that stands out to me. New England has draft capital to work with if it wants to move. So the real question is not only whether Kenny Moore can still play, the real question is whether the Patriots see him as a useful piece in a room that can't afford to lean on only 3 names. Sometimes contenders are not built only through splash moves. Sometimes they're built through insurance, experience, and having a real answer when the season gets tight. The third story jumps to a whole different level, because when A.J. Brown's name starts circulating again as a possible trade piece in Philadelphia, this stops being random league chatter and starts touching the offensive ceiling of the Patriots in a very real way. And what sparked this was not just noise, it was an actual move. The Eagles went out and traded for Dontavian Wicks from the Packers. By itself, that does not force anyone to declare anything. But the moment Adam Schefter adds that Brown's future in Philly is still being talked about around the league, and that a move would make more sense after June 1 because of the cap hit, the temperature changes. The story gets real weight. And when it gets real weight, Foxborough has to pay attention. Because let's be honest with each other, if there's one kind of player who can completely change how an offense is viewed, it's this kind of player. A.J. Brown is not just a talented wide receiver, he's a force. He's physical dominance. He's the kind of target that changes the way a defense lines up before the ball is even snapped. He draws coverage, he wins through contact, he puts fear into defensive backs, and he gives his quarterback a much bigger margin for error. For a team trying to build the right environment around Drake Maye, that possibility naturally changes everything. This would not be a nice extra piece. This would be a full shift in offensive hierarchy, and that's why this gets so hot from the Patriots side. New England has been tied to this rumor because the fit is obvious. There is need. There is room to think big, and there is strategic urgency when it comes to speeding up the development of a young quarterback. Wick's landing in Philadelphia is the kind of move that gets people connecting dots. If the Eagles are quietly preparing for the possibility of losing a major weapon, the market is going to start looking at Brown less like fan fiction and more like a real piece on the board. And if that board opens up, the Patriots need to be ready. What I like about this is that it would not just be about adding talent. It would be a statement of intent. It would be the franchise saying it does not want to just watch Drake Maye develop. It wants to push that development forward aggressively. It wants to hand the kid a true alpha target, a safety blanket with star power, someone who can turn a tough third down into a conversion and a contested ball into a game-changing play. If this path starts getting real after June 1, I honestly think New England has to be aggressive. Players like this do not come around often, and when they do, the price may look high, but the cost of doing nothing can be even higher. The fourth story does not come with the shine of a headline trade target, but it may tell us a lot about how Mike Vrabel sees roster building beneath the surface. When he said the team needed a third arm, that didn't sound like filler. It sounded like a real priority from a coach who wants the quarterback room set up the right way, with depth, with a plan, and with a young player who can be developed behind Drake Maye and Tommy DeVito. And now Jalon Daniels shows up on a top 30 visit, which immediately puts some focus on that search. Daniels comes out of Kansas with a profile that stands out for a few specific reasons. He's mobile. He's experienced. He spent 6 seasons in college, and his leadership was strong enough for him to become the first 4-time captain in school history. That might sound like a small detail to some people. For coaches, it isn't. That kind of background matters when you're looking for someone to come in, learn the system, survive the grind, and grow without the pressure of having to play right away. The numbers back up the profile too. He finished his college career with more than 9,000 passing yards, 67 passing touchdowns, and real production on the ground with 23 rushing scores. Last season, he set career highs in passing yards and touchdowns, which matters because it shows recent growth, not just old flashes. At the same time, it's easy to understand why he's not viewed as a clean, easy projection. The interceptions are an issue, the size is not ideal, and this is a package that would require patience. But that's exactly why the visit makes sense for New England. The Patriots are not hunting for some hidden savior here. They're looking for a project, a day 3 kind of player. Someone athletic, productive, and moldable, who can enter the building and spend his early time learning, tightening up fundamentals, protecting the football, and maturing. And I actually like this kind of move because it shows method. While a lot of people only focus on the biggest headline names on the roster, the coaching staff is thinking about the layers of the team, the quieter needs, the spots where a serious contender also has to be prepared. If Jalon Daniels ends up being the guy later on, it won't be a pick meant to dominate the news cycle. It'll be a pick meant to strengthen the structure, and serious teams are built that way too. At the end of the day, this whole group of stories leaves behind one very strong feeling: organized ambition. The Patriots are reshaping the staff to give the team a real identity, tracking players who could strengthen important spots, staying alert to a massive market opportunity, and at the same time building the roster with long-term development in mind. To me, that's the sign of a franchise with real life in it, a franchise that doesn't just want to exist this season, but grow inside it. Now I want to hear from you in the comments. Which of these 4 developments hit you the hardest today? And if you live Patriots football every day, subscribe to the channel because we've got more coming tomorrow.